Alright, well, back with a second video already for you masked people that I've neglected for probably 3 years. Well, maybe less than that. Anyway, we're not going to sit here and discuss my life story this time. We're just going to talk about masks. And that mask in particular is going to be the Metaluna Mutant from the 1955 sci-fi classic, This Island Earth. That character, that alien, is one of my favorite monsters of all time. Even though it's an alien, I call it a monster. You know, it's such a classic, crazy sci-fi design right out of the mid-50s. I don't think anything beats it from that era. So, Don Post Studios produced some really incredible variations of that movie character. And we're going to go over the ones I have here today. And actually, there's a few, or 2 or 3 I do not have that I'm desperately searching for out there. You know, and if they ever pop up, it's going to be a miracle. Hopefully they will. Anyway, we're going to start off with the jumbo size piece here. This is from the actual movie mold. It's known as the movie mold mutant to those in the mask world. And Don Post Studios got their hands on the movie mold many years ago. And they never produced these for the public really in catalogs or anything like that. If you're at the factory or even knew people that were there at the time, you could get your hands on one of these. They would cast one up, paint it, and if you're lucky, you'd go home with one. So, cast from the original mold, they're huge. They're filled with a poly foam inside, this whole brain. All these top heads are filled with a foam from the factory. And that's why when you see these masks, you know, if you ever run across them ever that are vintage, the tops will be really nice and the bottoms will probably be tattered. This one was. And that's because the whole top head, half of the head, was foamed from the factory. This one had problems down here. Luckily, this one is absolutely beautiful. Anyway, so the movie mold version here was cast at Don Post in the late 70s and painted there. So this is totally a nice vintage movie mold, copy. A lot of them came out in the 80s after that, all the way up possibly in the early 90s to my knowledge. But to me, this is, one of my favorite pieces in the collection. It's the second movie mold copy I've ever had. If I run across 10 more of these in the future, I would try to buy all 10 of them because they all have different paint variations. I actually own one that we believe was in an old weird video from Don Post Studios that Scott Baio was hosting. Those of you that know who Scott Baio is, I'm sure all you older people out there. Anyway, I'll show you a picture of that. I think I own the copy that was in the background behind him. Sold it to my friend Big Cat, who's got a crazy mask collection. Hopefully I can get there one day and film because it's insane. If you think this is good, wait till you see his collection. So anyway, the movie mold really wasn't a production piece. It was just kind of a custom order if you were lucky, to my knowledge. Anyway, we'll go to the earliest copy I have to the latest copy. Now this green one is the 1966 Metaluna Mutant, okay? My friends and I, people in the hobby, really have never seen one. We've seen them in old photos because they were in old TV shows like Lost in Space, Time Tunnel, like around 1966, 1967, you'd see these green mutants. But nobody in the hobby had one. It was like a mystery as if they were painted that way for the TV shows or whatever. Then this thing surfaces, of all places, on Facebook Marketplace. And a follower of the Mask Room, I can't remember his darn name right now, it's driving me crazy. This guy sends me a message on Instagram. He goes, hey, are these masks you might be interested in? He sends me, the link. And I'm looking at this link and there's this photo of 3 masks. There was this mask, another Wolfman that was too good to be true, and then an amazing 70s Dracula was next to it. And here I am looking at both of this and the Wolfman, and I'm staring at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's a 1966 Don Post calendar Wolfman, one of the rarest masks of all time. Not to mention, This is one of the rarest on-post masks of all time, next to an amazing Dracula that is out there, but they're very sought after. Christopher Lee Dracula, you know, from like 1977. And the price was totally insane. It was so cheap. I mean, this guy could have bought these and sold these masks to me for a crazy profit. But he didn't. He was so cool. He just passed the ad to me. Nobody else in the hobby would probably do that. And call my buddy who lives in Simi Valley, California. I'm like, these masks are 45 minutes from you. You got to drop what you're doing and go get these masks. I'm going to send you a bunch of money. I want you to give the guy all this money I'm sending you because I didn't feel right, you know, paying for what these were advertised for. I'm not going to show you what it was because you won't believe it. But anyway, I told the man, I said, I want to give you way more money than you're advertising because they're worth a lot. And he said, no, I don't want any more money from you. I sent him pictures of my whole collection before this. So he's seen everything. I said, this is so important to me that I get these masks. I got to buy them. You know, I'm going to send my friend over to your house with money. And he goes, I'm telling you, I don't want another penny. And I'm going to tell you why. He said, my father was a performer in the 50s and 60s. He was a professional clown. And the whole family was, I guess. They're a very famous name, I can't remember. But anyway, he said he was also like a vaudeville performer. He did spook shows, live stage spook shows in the 50s and the 60s. And in 1966, his dad went out and bought this mask and that Wolfman. And my God, there's probably more. Who knows where they ever went. But they would do these monster shows and people wear these character masks. They would do these character masks and they would do these characters and do these stage performances that were probably so damn cool. And he said, if my father saw where these masks were ending up, because these were important to him, and the monsters were important to him, he said he would not believe it. I'm like, man, that is really cool, you know? And I don't think about that stuff. When I collect this stuff, I don't think, you know, about that end of it, which is pretty awesome. So he said, okay, you know, have your friend come out. And of course, the whole time my friend's driving there, I'm still freaking out. I'm like, somebody is going to throw some crazy offer. I got friends out there that would just try to offer so much money just so they get them. And, you know, offer thousands of dollars or something, you know. And no, he got there. When my friend left, he called me. He goes, I got him. And I tried to give him the money and he wouldn't take it. And I'm like, oh. I'm like, all right. I'm like, you keep some of it and just send the rest back, you know. So anyway, that Wolfman turned out to be the 1966 calendar Wolfman. There was two versions. One was all brown, and another rare version had like white streaks in it, like crazy. It's so cool. It's been in some vintage films. I think it was in like, was it Orgy of the Dead or something? So not only did I score one of the rarest masks in the history of Downpost Studios, I scored two of them in the same deal and an amazing 70s Christopher Lee Dracula that is sitting right over there. Beautiful copy. And I'm like, does your dad have a Frankenstein? A 66 calendar Frankenstein, and the condition these were in, I would have fell over. I wouldn't have believed it. And he goes, I'm going to look. There were other masks back in the day, but they searched everywhere. He goes, they're just gone. So you can only be so lucky, you know. Anyway, they came in. This came out of the box. I pull it out. I'm going to show you what it looked like. It had damage, okay? The bottom was all sagging, and there was pieces that were off the mask, but they were in the box. You saved the pieces with it, thank God. So I put this thing through extensive restoration here. I did it myself. And the last half of this video is going to be me showing you exactly how I did it. So those of you that are bored by mask restorations and painting, don't watch the last half of the video, although it's really cool. And to me, this is probably one of the best things I've done. As far as getting a mask whipped back into shape, that's definitely one of the top 3 things I've ever done. Not that I've done a ton of them, but I impressed myself with that. One thing I want to run by you guys that seems very important to me right now, that it kind of hit me in the middle of this whole ordeal with this mask. I want you veteran collectors out there, those friends of mine with the big collections that were collecting back in the 70s, 80s, you know, I want you to think about this and tell me your thoughts in the comments. So, back to the 1966 monster calendar. This is a big deal for the rest of you, for mask collectors. Those Don Post calendar masks, you know, 1966, are like the holy grails of the whole Post, you know, saga. Like those are the untouchables that, you know, everyone wants. They remade them in the 90s. They barely exist out there. My thoughts are, so if you look at the 1966 monster calendar, there's a photo of a movie mold mutant. It's in the monster calendar. It's known as a calendar mask. And there's a cool green version with like pinkish veins. And guys, whoever has that mold, if you've got the original movie mold, get a hold of me on Instagram, anywhere, Facebook. I want a blank of that. I want a blank out of that movie mold. Please, I'm begging you. I want to paint one up exactly like the calendar photo. I've seen variations out there. I want to make one so exact that it looks like it came off that page. But anyway, forget that. This is what I'm trying to get to. This is a picture. I'm going to show you the picture now. Now, if you ordered that mask, like I said, Don Post wasn't selling these in 1966, okay? They had the mold. I feel if you ordered a calendar mask, you got that. So, this the real deal? 1966 calendar Metaluna Mutant? It's gotta be, right? Which hit me later on, I'm like, holy crap, it's gotta be the real deal 66 calendar frickin' mask. You know, and if it is, it's one of the nicest known calendar masks there are, you know, that I've known of, that I know of, or it just blows my mind that that's probably what this is. There's no catalogs to look at, you know, you just got to go by the history and figure this stuff out and talk. I know guys that were doing this in the 60s and 70s. I talked to them and they're like my mentors in this hobby. And I'm going to ask him his opinion, Mr. Maskahuna. I'm going to ask you your opinion on what I just said. It just makes sense. So, guys, comment what, you know, your thoughts are. Huna, we'll talk about it. I'll email you tonight, but hopefully you'll see the video first. Anyway, now back to the rest of this. Moving on to the next one. So that's 1966, okay? And it's pretty obvious it's a 66. 67, they came out with another version right away, which is green and red here. And they decided to make the first version Metaluna Mutant claws. Aren't those cool? Could you imagine little kids in 1967 running around wearing this whole getup? I mean, it'd be insane to see that running down the street. I know a couple kids out there that would love to wear this. Shout out to Cash and Sam. They're big followers of this channel. Those kids are amazing. They live in my area. Hopefully I'm going to get them here for a Halloween party soon. But anyway, this mask, at first I didn't think that these were factory colors. There's no catalog showing color photos of these things, you know? So I'm looking at it, I'm like, it sure looks vintage. The colors look real, you know, really old, like it was never repainted. Then I found out my friend Joel has one just like it. But Joel's is absolutely pristine. This one had damage, just like that one. Went through some restoration by the mask doctor, Kelly Mann. He brought it back to life, matched the paint perfectly. It looks great. Joel's, on the other hand, was found in some closet of a house, right? In a box, never worn, with a box from Don Post Studios, dated 1967, totally nuts. Joel, if you see this, I may be interested in that down the road. You know, maybe I'll sell this one, buy that one. I don't know. Anyway, so there are a couple 67s that I know of, at least two. This one and Joel's. And it's one of the crazier looking ones, you know. This one, the face is a little distorted on this because it went through the restoration and it's kind of smashed in, but it came out pretty nice, and I love the look of it. Like, these were all foam filled from the factory. Like, this is solid foam from the factory. They injected the whole thing with foam, thank goodness. These, however, like I was saying before, the top halves are foam filled from the factory. So when you run across these in the wild, the tops are always nice, the bottoms aren't usually that great. Not that they pop up often, ever. So now, we got the 66, we got the 67, and we got the movie mold here. 1955 movie mold. So now, before I get to this, there's a gap in between, okay, of missing mutant, big brain mutants that I'm missing, that I am dying to locate. My friend, Big Cat, has one I know of. I think my friend Mascahuna's got one. He's probably got a couple of them, but they're some of the more cooler looking ones. Early 70s, 70, 71, 72. I'm going to show you what they made, and they're pretty cool. They went to 3-color paint ups on them. So there's a third color added to the paint job, and they're pretty wild looking. So I'm going to show you that now, then we're going to get to that last. So check this out. Here's an awesome catalog photo of a prototype paint job from 72. Then, in the early 70s, they started painting them green, red, with silver highlights like these. These are really tough to find, and it's the one I'm missing. So if you ever see one out there, let me know. I'll give you a finder's fee if you can get one of these into my hands. Then there's this rare photo of a blue base with red and the silver highlights. It's unknown to when this mask was made. So finally we get to the last one here in my collection. This is the Bill Malone Metaluna Mutant. The famous, I'm going to say the awesome and pretty famous Bill Malone sculpted this. He's done so many cool things for movies and whatnot. Check out the history on this guy. But he was sculpting for Don Post in like the mid-70s. And the masks he did, you could tell it's a Bill Malone mask. You know, it's got its own style to it. Anyway, they went back to the classic movie look, blue and red. They came out with another second version of the claws in the 70s, which look a lot more like the film. So, I love these a lot. And there actually was movie mold claws, which are much longer and skinnier, and they look different. They have different claws on the end. They're from the movie mold claw from that film. And I've heard through another collector that if you have a set of claws and they're both different, meaning like, you know, you got opposites, they're definitely a vintage pair. But if they're two of the same, then they're not that vintage, but still from a vintage mold, but only one of them. I think that's true. I'm sure people may jump in and argue, whatever, I don't care. But anyway, these two masks were my friend Bobby Beeman's collection. He went by the name of Toy Ranch, one of the greatest monster toy collectors and mask collectors I've known, and I'm very good friends with him. He's down in Texas. I would drool over these two masks in his collection and his Flickr photos online, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. I'd look at these photos like, oh my God, I want those so bad. They looked so cool in those pictures, and never in a million years did I think they'd be sitting here in front of me. So Bobby decided to do different things in life. He's like, I was selling my masks, you know, and I bought a lot of them. And they weren't cheap, but I'm so glad I got every single one I acquired, because they're some of the best pieces I've got. And well worth every penny. And it's cool to see a lot of Bobby's things in one place, you know. Anyway, I hope you like this video. Before I close, I want to mention there was another mutant that Don Post released later in the 90s, the late 90s, when they did the calendar reissues. They came out again with a movie mold size mutant. I believe it was originally casted in the movie mold in the 90s, but something happened in the process where it came out a little differently shaped, like it was more slender and pointier towards the bottom. It looks totally different than these. And I've owned a couple of those, and if you guys out there are in love with this character, You know, these masks can run in the thousands of dollars. But those Don Post ones, they're creeping up though. Those late 90s versions used to be a few $100, you know, back in the day. Now I see them for, you know, 500, 600, 700, and they're just, who knows where they're going to end up. But that's a great alternative to spending way more money. Anyway, I'm hopefully going to acquire those 70s versions that I'm missing. If you guys out there ever run across them, I will give you finder's fees, nice finder's fees, for hooking me up with a deal on locating one and purchasing it. So keep that in mind. And more videos to come. We got all kinds of weird stuff in this room. I'm going to be going over monster models, monster toys, magazines, comics, all kinds of stuff throughout this channel as time goes by. And of course, all my crazy car stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching, and more mask videos soon, hopefully before Halloween. Alright, thanks.
Here's how I received it. It had old newspaper stuffed in it. You can see the neck was quite a mess. It was sagging a lot from sitting on a shelf or something for years. There were pieces falling off. A lot of pieces were missing. It was very misshapen. Even the eyes were egged out, as you can see. See, that piece was completely off there. I'm holding it up. I really had to stare at this thing for a long time and think it out. I never encountered one like this before, and I wanted it to come out as good as possible because the mask is so rare. I started making patches out of cheesecloth and liquid latex to help hold the pieces back in place from behind. I was using E6000 super glue to glue those patches in place from behind. As far as all the misshapen areas, I have a special heat treatment that I do that's pretty unique, and I've never seen anyone do it before. I'm going to do a whole video on it soon, but I sit by my fireplace and hold the masks at a certain distance, and it's the perfect heat to manipulate these messed up areas back into place. Once the top of the mask and some of the sides were back to normal, I would then take my 2-part foam and get areas foam filled and let that dry, and I used a harder foam this time so it's more rigid. The back looked great now, but the front still had a big chunk missing, so I had to take a flower pot because it was nice and curved and very sturdy, and I cut it out with a Dremel. It's going to be the bottom structure underneath the missing area that I'm going to have to fill and sculpt back into place. All that's missing, so I have to make that. I literally have to make it all. I added my patches to it, glued it in place, as you'll see coming up here, and that was the base to work on. So I could put filler in there and fill all that in, and it had somewhere to sit. Now I have a strong understructure to work off of. I can glue my side pieces back on that were totally broken off. And then comes the filler. Check this out. You want to use a filler that's going to be flexible and something you can paint over that's going to hold your paint to it. So this stuff I'm going to show you turns clear after a while, and I just kept building it up in layers as it dried. Then I added liquid latex, layering that on so it could actually be sculpted quite a bit. I was getting those veins and those patterns kind of sculpted in, so I would kind of fake that missing area. As you can see, I'm making those ridges so it looks like the mask that was missing. I carefully sculpted in the missing veins with the same materials, then added colors over it to try and mimic the old paint job. I still have to mist it with an airbrush with a little orange or brown over those veins, but man, they came out looking pretty damn good. Totally faked it, and most people would never even know the front was missing. Luckily, it was a nice crude sculpture, so I had a little freedom with, faking those veins and those grooves. But man, I think I pulled it off. You can see a lot of before and after photos now. And I want to thank you guys for sticking through this part of the video. I had a lot of fun restoring that mask. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the like button, please, and we'll see you soon with more weird stuff. Later.